and you would just assume that that would be there because it's a tropical country, you're in a tropical place, it's hot outside, but it's not always the case. Hey beautiful people, how are you? My name is Connor and you're watching ThrivingMinimalist.com, and today I'm tuning in from Ubud, Bali, and we're going to be talking about 3 years nomadic minimalist traveling and what I've learned from that. And I'm going to share these things with you all in case you are looking to become a nomad and travel the world or travel nationally. So most of the things I'm going to be talking about can relate to national or international travel. There's only a couple that have to do specifically with international travel. So to give you just a very brief background, I've been traveling for about 3 years. Most of the time I'm traveling for a month to 2 months from place to place. The longest I've stayed in the last 3 years has maybe been 4 months, and that's been in Austin, Texas. Most of the time when I'm in Austin, I stay up to 3 months at this time, and that's 2 times out of the year. So half of my time is in the US, the other half of the time is traveling internationally. I've been to a lot of different places, and I feel like I've got some good knowledge that I can share with you guys in case this is something that's going to be new for you, or maybe it's something that you've been doing for a while but you're still tweaking, and maybe you can add some of the things that I've learned along the way to your repertoire and make it an even more abundant nomadic existence. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that I've learned in my last 3 years is that I really like moving around. I love it. I love it a lot. And you probably do too, and that's part of the reason that you're watching this video. But what I've also determined is that I don't like moving around too much in a short amount of time. So in order for me to live this nomadic life, I need to be running a business. Not all of us have to do that. Some of us have income from other places and whatever, but I really like to have time to run my business, to connect with myself, to connect in my relationships, to practice my movement that I love to do, to get back into my mindfulness practices. So all those things I can't do if I'm moving around every 3 days, if I'm moving around every week, even if I'm moving around every 2 weeks. It's just not quite enough time to settle. So what I've determined is that when moving from place to place, I like no less than 1 month at a time in any given place. This allows me to sync up with myself, but it also allows me to sync up with the place that I'm in. Because any time less than that, it's kind of just like going to an amusement park and checking it out for a day. There's so much to see, there's so much to take in any place that you're going to go to. And I think it does take a little bit of time to really sink in and get your routines and your patterns so you feel like you're part of the place and you can start enjoying it in the fullest way that you can. So I really like to stay in places no less than a month and up to 2 months. 2 months is starting to get the itchy feet, and I'm ready to go. The second thing that I have learned is to check on the weather of the place I am traveling to before going to it. Most of us are living a nomadic life because we're chasing the good weather. We love the good weather, we love the sun, like all human beings, we love the sun. I know there's a lot to appreciate about the snow, about the fog, about the rain. I love those things too. But by and large, I think most of us seek out sunny, warm places to live, and a lot of those places are in the tropics. And there was one time when I was traveling, it very first started out traveling in Southeast Asia, and I was just bumping around from place to place to place, and I found myself booking a trip to Hanoi, Vietnam. And I just figured it's in the tropics, it's gonna be warm, it's gonna be great, plenty of fruit, plenty of food, plenty of like everything I need. And I got up there and it was freezing, it was cold, it was so cold. This was in December or January, so it is winter in Vietnam. And in the north of Vietnam, it does get quite cold. And I was traveling like in a t-shirt and shorts and just had a pair of long johns. And I remember being in the hotel room at night and just taking everything I had, including their towels, and wrapping myself up with them and still being super cold. And another example is just coming to places that have maybe rainy seasons. You know, you might think like it's a tropical country, it's going to be great, it's like a perfect time of year, but maybe for a month or for 2 months they have monsoons there. Now, you might love monsoons and you might plan to do it that way, but my point is that you don't quite know the place you're going to until you check it out. You might have a preconceived idea about it and you might be pretty close to it, but I would really recommend checking out the weather before you head to a place and plan on nestling down for a month or 2. As I stated before, the reason that I'm able to move around so much and live this nomadic existence is that my primary income is created and generated online. And that is awesome, but it means that I need a badass Wi-Fi connections. And there are certain countries in the world, there are certain places in the US, there are certain spots where we go to where Wi-Fi just is either non-existent or really subpar. And for someone like me who's creating content and putting and uploading a lot of videos, I need a high bandwidth. I need Wi-Fi that's pretty decent. So you may not be able to figure all of this stuff out ahead of time, but I would really recommend, if you can, to search this stuff out depending on where you're going. Call like your Airbnb if that's how you're doing it, call your hotel, call your hostel, and make sure that they have the Wi-Fi that you are requiring. And also with the country in general, you can find out the country's bandwidth for the country, for the city. You can do all that stuff just Googling. It doesn't take very long to do a little investigation work. If this is something that you're going to need in your life, I'd highly recommend making sure that you have it and that it's good before settling in on a place. Number 4 on my list is something that has become so consciously important that I make sure to be aware of it every time I'm traveling, and that is community. That is relationships. We human beings are so hyper-social as a species. We really need each other. We really thrive off of each other. Our state of being, both mentally and physically, is dependent on other people. And if we're able to find communities that we really resonate with, that feel really good to be around, that help lift us up rather than maybe hold us back or stifle us, we are going to feel so much better about wherever we are. And it might be kind of difficult to flush out, you know, these types of communities, especially if you're not really sure the type of community that you're going to be aligning with. But I know for me, back when I was traveling in the very beginning, I was moving around Southeast Asia, I was actually really depressed for a long time, for about half of my travel, until I found my way up to Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I met up with some community there. And from there, I felt like I had friends, camaraderie, people to rely on, people to love, people to generate love with. And it just changed my whole experience. And that's one of the reasons that I keep going back to Chiang Mai, Thailand to run Fruit Winterfest with Brittany. And so I want to take a minute and just mention these different festivals that Brittany and I are putting on or are involved in, and recommend that if community is something that you're seeking and you're also seeking to do some travel, these are some places that you can look into to travel and to have community and to get out of the space that you're in, and to do it in a way that's really going to feel good with a lot of other people looking to do a very similar thing as you. Number 5 on my list has to do with international travel. It has to do solely with your visa, with your passport, and making sure that you keep that in mind when you are traveling. As a US citizen, we have a great ability to travel to a lot of different countries without having to get a visa beforehand. There's a lot of other countries that also share this ability. There's also some countries that no matter what passport you have issued to you, you're gonna have to get a visa. I don't know if Vietnam is one of those where everyone has to get a visa, but I know for me, I was surprised just to find out that I needed a visa to get to Vietnam. And when I had booked my flight and I was in the airport and I had an hour to go and they were like, "Where's your visa?" that was not the time to find that news out. So no matter where you're going in the world, if it's not within your own country, I'd really recommend checking that information out first. The last thing on my list, number 6, is to consider food. I have been in some places where I have been so hungry. I happen to eat, you know, plant food, primarily fruit. I love plant food. It's really what allows me to feel like I'm thriving. I think everybody's diet is different. Whatever is good for you, I totally support. Rock it out, do your thing. But for most of us, we have determined these certain foods don't feel good, these certain foods do. And when you're traveling, whether it's within your own country or outside of your own country, food is going to change. It's going to look different. Part of the reason that we might find challenges to our dietary changes is that our gut flora is going to change every time we move spaces, because the flora that we find in this space is really different than we find in this space. And that's internationally for sure, but it's also nationally. Just county to county, you're going to be consuming different water, fruit grown in different places, local foods produced in a different way, in different soil. And so there's these different microbes, and it takes time for your belly to adjust to those new microbes. And this is something that I think is important to be aware of, because sometimes when we move spaces, we feel like this food isn't right for me, it's not good for me, it doesn't feel good. But sometimes it just takes a week or two to kind of adjust and allow our gut flora to get back to a neutral state and connect kind of, you know, physiologically with the environment that you're now in. So I think there's some gentleness to be had there. But I hate to bring up Vietnam again, but this is another issue I had, is when I went to the north and I was in Hanoi and it was so cold. At the time I was eating 100% raw food, mostly fruit, and I could not for the life of me find good produce there. And interestingly enough, even down south in Thailand, down in the islands during January, I had a really difficult time, my first time going down there 5 years ago, and trying to find fruit. And you would just assume that that would be there because it's a tropical country, you're in a tropical place, it's hot outside. But it's not always the case. So depending on what type of food you're looking to fuel your body with, you may want to do some research before moving to the place. And I think the best way to do all of this research is by finding communities that are on maybe Facebook or maybe some kind of blog where people, expats or nomads, are posting, so that you can hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and get the information that you're looking for from people who are doing it, who are living there, who know what's up, and you can ask these questions too. So seeking out groups of people who are actually there at the time you are planning to go there is really, really helpful. So much love for you. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any of your own tips that you'd like to post in the comments, I think people would really appreciate that. I hope to see you at one of these festivals that Brittany and I are going to be at, either hosting or presenting at this coming year. I'm going to throw that up on the end screen of this video so you can take a look. And also you can check out the links in the description to see more on those festivals and specifically some discount codes that we can offer you. So much love. Take care. Bye-bye.